Good day, everyone. This is Scott from GDS, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to cover the final glass report, as well as a lot more to do with glass in the program. So hopefully we'll get a good understanding of everything about glass in our WinBidPro software. And I am using the version 15.2.9 release of our software. So if you don't have that version, it's always a good idea to download the updates, and an update patch should be all you need if you already have a version of 15.2. And I am using the TrueLight Glass Aluminum catalog. This is the latest from them, which was updated in 2014, I think towards the end of the year. And as usual with our webinars, you can ask questions at the end by clicking the raise hand little icon, or you can type a question in to the question box, and then I can answer it either verbally or typing something also. So let's talk about glass. So glass is the one thing in WinBidPro that's kind of global to the program itself. It's not vendor specific. It's not, and it doesn't even have to be specific to one user. If you have a network and you're sharing your master database, which is kind of what you log into, it has the usernames and it also has the glass in it. So you can share the master database on your network, and 3 or more people can be using the exact same glass table. So, or more than 2 people. So you don't even have to use the same catalogs, but you can as well. But the one thing you can do is also use the same glass table. So let's start with that. In the glass table, so everything starts there. All the parts for glass are listed in the glass table, and we've kind of, if you've installed the software in the last few years, we've included a kind of a populated glass table that has 200 and some records in it. So, and they've got descriptions of the type of glass. There's a label that I'll talk about more in a minute, and there's a color that you can actually list separately than if it's not in the description. So then there's the type, whether it's annealed, tempered, or louvers, or some other type of glass. So and then there's a labor code. So the labor webinars and videos that we have on our website would talk more about how the labor affects or this labor setting here affects the glass labor, but glazing labor. And then we've got minimum area, the price per square foot, the thickness of the glass, and whether or not it's insulated. So all these things kind of help you select the glass when it's time to add it to an elevation. So one of the things I wanted to mention was the labels. And the labels are something we added kind of maybe 5 or so years ago. And it's something that helps in your elevation to just not only have to look at an A for annealed or a T for tempered. So not only it can help you search for a certain type of glass, but also it's going to show whatever we have typed in here on your elevation. So if you wanted to see the word azuria for this type of glass, you would go in here and just type that in, and I can copy and paste that since these are all the same. But these are all the same except for the thickness. So I could put I could even abbreviate it and put azuria. That's 1/8 inch. It looks like, and I don't know if it lets me put. Yeah, I guess it does let me put that in there. The slash. Sometimes we limit you from using the slash key in certain things. And 1875. That's like 1/16. It looks like. If I'm not mistaken. So you have only up to, excuse me, up to 9, or I think 10 characters that you can use for the label. The problem is you don't want to get into a situation where it gets so messy with small lights of glass that the label that's showing is cluttering up the whole drawing. So we kind of limited it. So you can abbreviate, you can, just do what you need to do. So another, real quick before I get out of this, is one thing you can do to, now you'll notice that most of these prices are 0. So when you get your glass table, your prices are 0. You probably already noticed that. So you can go in here and update pricing by filtering down the list. Now you can also just delete all these and add your own glass records, since it is, custom to your business. So if you don't like any of these descriptions, or if there's just way too many in here, then just delete them and add your own. And just by clicking on it, clicking on the Add New button, you can type in whatever you want. So you could say, we do prevent you from putting the quotation mark in there, because that messes up some of the exporting and printing, etc. But I can put quarter in, like inch, and a period. I believe it lets me put a period, and then I can put like clear annealed even in the description. So, and then I can say for the label, I can put 0.25 CLR even, or even that, clear A. Since it's quarter inch, it's not insulated, so I can even put the color clear here. So you see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of filling in all this up to 5/16. My price can be, $3.75. Minimum block size is 3, and you can put the supplier. And again, that's just another way to help you filter it down when you're looking for it in the list. So I could put ABC glass. Now that's what I was going to mention here is I've added this record. It's going to sort it by description, so if I hit clear filter here, then it's going to pop it wherever it needs to go description-wise, alphabetically. But if I wanted to, I could sort by my supplier, which there's only one record with a supplier, so I'm going to clear that. But if I wanted to update my pricing, I can actually go by type. I could say all the annealed glass that's 0.25 and is, if I had coloring in there, I could do it. I can even put color here. So anything that's blue, that's annealed and quarter inch, I could update the price just by doing this here. Now in the glass report that you'll see soon, it's a little bit different. So it's kind of, you want to look at the glass that you would most commonly use, and let's say if that needs to change to 5, that needs to change to 4, if I need to put a 6 in these. So you would have to go through and just update each one individually in this report. Now glass types you can actually change. Like if I wanted to, I could, I do believe we let you add a new glass type. Yeah, so you could put some custom glass type, like I have vent here, I have spandrel, tempered, obviously, impact and all that. So you can add your own glass type by clicking Edit Glass Types here, and then when you go and click on it in this list, or in the grid here, I can change it to something new that I've added, or I can change it to something that's already there. So that will work for you. Now the other thing that I wanted to mention is, you probably know this too, if the program doesn't have a label for show label, then it's going to use the first letter of whatever glass type you have. So you would want to be aware of that when you're adding glass types. Don't add one that begins with the same letter unless you plan on using labels on all the glass that uses that type. So that's just something to know. So the label is important because it will show up on your drawing. The color is optional because it will either help you find something, or you can just use the color in the description, so you don't necessarily have to have it there. And the minimum area, that's used in the calculations in the glass report. The discount quantity is not right now. That's just kind of for your own information. So that would be like how many square feet of glass you need to get a certain discount, or what the quantity is. So it's just kind of a reminder for yourself. So the minimum area, though, is used in the calculation. I'll show you that when we get to the report. So now we've added glass, obviously, to elevations. So this elevation already has glass. So let's go to that real quick, where we add glass to the elevations. So we're going to go to our glass tab. Now this is where we're going to use our filter bar here to search for some of the glass records that we want to look at. So if I wanted blue quarter inch, and notice how I have to put 0.25 here. I can't just put 0.25, I don't believe. Yeah, 0.25 doesn't work, so it likes to see that 0 in front. So 0.25, it's not going to be insulated when it's that. So if I like this one here that says Arc Eclipse. Now I can apply this light or this type of glass to, let's say this is off the ground. I can do it by row up here. And now these are doors on the sides of this elevation. So if I go back and go to my Layout tab here, notice I've got doors and these are transoms up here. So doors kind of throw off the row count because the first row is now what's above the door. So that kind of helps you in the sense that if I want to put tempered glass in, and let's see, if I wanted to see what else was here, Arc Blue Eclipse. Oh, so if I wanted to do this tempered, I don't remember. Yeah, see, it won't let me type in the show label here, so I would have had to actually get that set back up in here. So if I wanted to set the label before I add it. So the one thing I meant to say was it's good to go through here and kind of make sure all the glass that you commonly use, like I say, is updated the way you want it. So I noticed glass ID 52 didn't have the show label. So I'm going to do, oops, that's this one right here. So Arctic, I'm going to put Arctic BL for that. And maybe a T. Oops. So I don't need to edit. I can just do it where I was. So now I actually need to get off of this glass tab, back to layout, and then go back to glass. And now it's going to show me the update. So it just reminds me that someday I need to make it so you can actually real-time update this list here, but we haven't done that. So remember that any changes pretty much before you add the glass have to be done in the master glass table, but I'll show you where you can change things after they've been added. So that's more of a job-specific thing. So if I want to add this type of glass that's tempered to the bottom row, you'll notice this is row 1 on these panels, but in the door lights, row 1 is the transom. So it carries it up over the door, basically, because the door is its own. It's not its own row. It's just a door. So that for the door, you probably know this, you have to do it by light. So the alternative is if we have an elevation that's all the same type of glass, and for one reason or other, it all needs to be tempered. And these are all the same size. There's no differences. So the easiest thing for me to do is just add it by elevation. So I'm going to click Add by Elevation, and it just applies every piece of glass in that elevation. It's all the same. So I can always go through and change things. So if I need to, I can change to this one, annealed, and just on certain lights, I can click over and replace the glass. So you'll see that it's just replacing what I'm clicking on. It basically deletes the glass that was already there and replaces it with the new selection you have. So in a nutshell, that's all the different ways to add glass. You can see that you can delete it. I can view it. If I view it by light, it's easy. It's going to show me the size, and that's the actual size with your added daylight. It's going to show me the description, the little the glass code that we give it. So the one I clicked on was in panel 1, row 2. So G for glass, panel 1, row 2. So that's what our little naming convention here means. And that is actually considered a label as well. So I'm going to go and turn that on in my drawing settings right here. So this is another thing that affects glass. So we call it a label here. It's a little confusing because we call the other one show label, but maybe we'll come up with a better name so it's not as confusing later. But if I check that box, and let's just say I want to see my glass sizes right on the drawing, I can check both those boxes and hit OK. So now it's a little more cluttered on the drawing, but I've got a lot more information. So you can see I can zoom in here. Oops. It's a little tricky when you're on the glass screen to zoom in because it thinks that you're clicking on something. So I'm going to click off of it here. I'm going to go to a different tab layout. Now I can click on it, the drawing, to zoom in. That's the one problem with zooming is you have to click on the drawing first before it knows you want to zoom. So it's giving me the exact size with the added daylight, and it's giving me the position of the glass. That's kind of the position label, I guess. And then it's giving me my label of the glass type. So those are all the things that you can basically change in the program to either show these things and then dictate what this type is that shows, or this type of glass label that shows up. Now, okay. So that is how that works. I was going to show you something else, but let's do, so now let's go to the final glass. So as soon as glass is added to an elevation, it's basically copied from the master glass table. It's put into a specific table only for this job, but it pulls all the information from the glass table, and it also knows the sizing. So it knows the sizing just based on your daylight openings, so that's simple. Once you have your drawing, you've got daylight openings. Oh, and the framing system. So let's check the framing system setting. That's the other thing that affects glass sizing. Right here is your add to daylight. So if your glass is coming out the wrong size, it's definitely because of this add to daylight. And this is for standard panel glass. So you know what your daylights are because you're looking at it here on your drawing. And now you know why it turns out to be what size it is, because we're telling it to add 5/8 to both the length and the width. So that's how that happens. Now the exception is back in our framing systems that have transoms. So when we have a transom glass, we go to our doors, we can edit a door frame, and the transom glass, you'll see that that this door frame from TrueLight is set up to subtract from the vertical added daylight. So typically what the program's going to do is, well, the other reason is there's a glass stop here. So if the transom stop is 3/4 of an inch, it knows to reduce that to basically make the daylight vertical height lower. So in essence, the daylight is lower because it's biting into it. So the transom stop affects the glass size, the height of the glass, and so does this vertical add to daylight adjustment we can manually make here. So between the two of these settings, you can really tweak the vertical glass height in a transom. And to affect the width of the glass in the transom, you are pretty much stuck with one way to do that, which is putting glass stop in. So if we wanted to add glass stop to this transom here, I would have to say from panel 1 to 1, from a height of 84 to the overall height, which is 120. And then I would want to say left and right. And then apply stops is what I'm doing. So I'm going to add the stops. Now the tough part here is my stops don't have any profile right now. So the reason for that is the stops are part of the framing system. So I'm going to go to the framing system for this elevation, and here you'll see I have glass stop profiles. So let's say I want to add a 1-inch glass stop to each left and right side. If I do that and redraw, then it updates the drawing here. Now it should adjust the glass size automatically because it knows that something in that daylight opening has changed, and it should shrink the glass. So I didn't write down the size before this, but we do see that daylight opening is 36, and my glass is coming out at 34/5/8, so that's right. It's subtracting an inch on each side, which makes it 34, and then we've got our added daylight of 5/8. So it kind of did the changes on the fly for us, which is what we wanted to do when I did something that changed that daylight opening. So that's how you're going to have to change the width of the glass in the transom. And I thought I'd throw that out there because some people aren't aware of that. In the future, we're going to make these vertical transom stops a part of the door frame. But right now, they're not, so only the bottom stop is. And right now, you have to use the stop tab to manipulate that. So that's something you can do. All right, so now we're going to go to final glass. So final glass, like I say, once you add glass to your elevation, it's all put into a job table for just glass. So it knows the position of the glass, it knows the height, the length and width, or the height and width. It also knows the quantity. So based on, how many pieces are the same, and also based on your elevation quantity. So all that stuff is shown to us in the final glass report. Now, that first elevation we did didn't have glass in it with the glass labels. It just had the A's and the T's. So now, remember that here, I can change the pricing. I'm going to make this screen a little bigger so we can see more stuff here. Now, I've got a couple prices in here, but a lot of these things aren't priced. So let's say my door glass needs its own price. And I know there's some different door glass. Oh, and there's a little bug here with the with typing in the filter bar. And if I do like each keystroke, it jumps me out of this field, and I have to kind of click back in. But really, to see door glass, all I need is a D anyway. But just to mention, that bug will be fixed in the 0.10 update for 15.2. So, because it should let me keep typing as I go, and instead of just jumping out of here. But usually the first letter is kind of all you need anyway when you're filtering. So the door glass, if I just wanted to change the door glass, let's say it was slightly different type but basically the same kind, then I could change it all in one shot by saying filtering to the door glass and then clicking change price and then saying it's $5.50 a square foot. So that's how I would update kind of specific pieces of glass in the glass table. Now if I want to go back and look at some other ones that need updating, there's transom glass, and there's also tempered. So I could actually just say all my tempered glass is a certain price. Like if it all needs to be $5.50, I could do that real quick. Change that to $5.50. And let's say clear. The same thing with annealed. If it's all the panel glass that needs to be all the, oops, it's messing me up again by jumping out. So if it's all the panel tempered glass, needs to be its own price. So you get the idea. I can kind of, let's say that's $5.75. I can jump around and dictate what I want to see with my filter bar and then update just those prices. Now these prices are just affecting this job. So if you like the fact that your global glass table has no pricing in it and you always want to do just job-specific pricing, then you can leave it 0 in the master and then just do this every time with your glass table. So now assumably this is when you've gotten pricing back from your supplier, right? So what you would first do, let's say we've got our entire list, what we would first do is just print it without prices. Let's say you even have some old pricing in there, you didn't want the supplier to see it or whatever. You can print the report with just without pricing. So when we see that, it's just giving us area, excuse me, it's saying minimum area is okay because every piece of glass is over that minimum. And then you've got a summary down here on page 2 that shows us the different, the quantity of lights and, or I'm sorry, that's the square footage. And then it's the area of, breaks it down between annealed and tempered. And then the square footage of door lights too. So that's kind of just a summary for your info. I'm sure you've seen that. And then there's a report that has a little less information. If I print that without pricing, it just doesn't show as much information in the columns here, but it's still got the same summary information. So that is your reports without pricing. And then once you get your pricing back from your supplier, you do the things that I did with the filter bar and the change prices. And then you can not check that print without prices. And then let's say you want the full-on report with all the information. So that's what you would get after you've kind of updated your pricing. That gives you your final bottom line price. And oh, I must have missed some of the prices. But anyway, that gives you your bottom line price, which would show up down here on page 2. And then that is what shows up in your markup report. So then you can mark it up with tax and your profit margin. So that's how basically it goes from step, square one, which is your parts, your glass table. That's like your master list, trickles down to applying it to the job with the different labels that you need, and then gets it all listed correctly in your final glass report. And then you get your pricing entered, and then you get your final price, and then you take it from there into final parts. I'm sorry, not final parts. And you take it to the markup report. So when we get to the markup report, you'll notice that that glass material number was the same as that bottom line price, and then you can do your glass markup. If there's any tax on your glass, if there's a surcharge for glass, all those things will affect your final bid price and your profits. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell for the glass. Now, the one thing is there's an elevation glass report. So elevation glass reports don't really worry about the pricing much. So if, let's say I just want to look at my second elevation, which was now the third one was that big one, so let's look at that. We can actually look at, all of them too. I can say check all, I can clear them, or I can just click on the ones I want. So what it's going to do is show me the first one, and then skip. When I close this, it'll open up the next one. So this shows me, oh, I know what it is. So it shows me the prices, but it's actual pricing. So it's not the block size. So when we talk about elevation glass, we're not talking about block sizes. So if you, for some reason, are cutting your own glass, or you just want to know exactly what your actual glass costs are based on actual size, this is the report you would use to do that. So this one has a little more detailed report. It's in the wide kind of landscape format, and then you can see here it's pretty much the same, and it is showing a block size here for the elevation glass. But I do believe if we print the basic report, that one doesn't have block sizes. So this was like the original report that we did. No block sizes gives you actual price for the actual size of the glass. And then we must have had some requests. I didn't forget when we did this, but to have the detailed report, it's actually giving us all the elevation breakdown for just this elevation, but it's showing us the block pricing. So that kind of thing came along a little later on in version 15. So now the next thing so those are the two different ways you can print an elevation glass report. And like I said, it would print one, then it would print the next, or it would show. So when I close this one, I should see third here. And then I could go ahead and print the report for that one. So that breaks it down by elevation. Now, if you wanted to get those reports, but you wanted them all to print automatically, or at least more in sequence, we would go to our print reports window. So in the print reports, I don't know if you either probably use it or don't, depending on what your needs are, but there's a glass report section. So I can preview the glass report, the elevation glass report, which was the same thing we were just looking at. I can also preview, and it's based on whatever setting you left on the screen the last time you were in that report, like whether you wanted the detailed report or the basic one, or whether you wanted no price or price. So keep that in mind. Let me just check that actually. So if we go to Final Glass and I say print without pricing and I close, we go to Final Glass again. Okay, I kind of remember doing this. The print without prices actually isn't saved, but the portrait and landscape setting is. So that means when we go back into print reports, it's always going to print the one with pricing. So if you have to print it without pricing, you need to go to the Final Glass in the menu here. But if you want to do just the landscape or portrait or the basic or detailed for either the final or the elevation glass, then you can do those from here. Now, a newer report that we added is glass per job. So let's see what that looks like. So we're going to hit print preview on that one. And so what it's showing us is all the glass for the job, but when we print it, we can tell it to group it by elevation, and this is the big key. So when we group it by elevation, it's going to change the sort a little bit. You'll notice the elevation names are here, and it's sorted. And it's got the sort codes, those numbers that you see when you're, it's covered up now, but it always says like 1 of 3, 2 of 3, that kind of thing. So now this has a basic and detailed kind of version as well. So when we hit print report on this, again, we're doing the entire job, but it's going to break it down by elevation. So what that means is we're going to see a heading here for the elevation. So the first elevation is going to show up here, and we go to the next page, and see the second elevation here, and then you'll see it doesn't fill a full page, so the third elevation's here. So instead of having to print separate pages for all the different elevations, it's giving you one continuous report that summarizes each elevation's glass and gives you some subtotals and things like that. So I might even try and make these a little more bold so it stands out better in the future update. But yeah, in fact, I'll probably do that for point 10. I just realized it'd be easier to look at. So there's a few different choices then for glass, and this is going to give you your block size, pricing, all your details here. But let's say if we want the basic and we want to group it by elevation, let's do that. Yeah, so then that's not giving us, so again, it's like the elevation glass report that we were looking at alone, only this is going to make it continuous, where, you know, the first elevation's up there, and then we go to the next page, there's the second and third. So it's a little shorter report if you want it that way, and this is giving you actual pricing, so remember that. But those are the choices. You've got, and this is the only place you can print that one, the one that kind of makes it continuous by elevation. Otherwise, you've got the two that we already looked at, the elevation and the final glass reports here. So all three are together. But back on the menu, you can't do that continuous by elevation one. You can only do each elevation independently or the final glass here. So that's how that works. Now, when something does not meet the minimum, like let's say it was a small piece of glass and the block area here was 2.5, then the program, you probably know this, but the program's automatically going to say, oh, it has a minimum of 3, but really it's only 2.5. So it's going to take that quantity, multiply it by the minimum area, and then by the price to get your price based on that minimum. So now a change that's coming, I thought I'd mention this, a change that's coming in the 0.10 update, the 0.10 update, will have a checkbox down here that says, show me the actual area based on the minimum, or show me the area for when the minimum's not met. So in that case, we're already doing the pricing, but our total square footage is still being based on the actual block sizes. But with the box check that's going to be in the 0.10 update, then it will actually take the, if it's too small to meet the minimum, it's going to look at the minimum area and use that for total square footage. So basically, it's going to show both the price and the total square footage based on the minimum. And anything that's over the minimum, obviously, is going to use what it actually is. But so we had a customer that requested something like that, and I thought it was a worthwhile change to make, and it wasn't that difficult. So the way I ended up doing it was with a check mark down here, and I think you guys will see that as helpful for giving you kind of a more accurate summary in this final report. So those are the things. Now, you can add new glass. Oh, this is going to go a little long because I have a couple things I still want to say. So you can add new glass here. It's just like adding glass to anything, and you can put in the size and all that, and it's going to show up. So that won't get changed even when you delete glass from your elevation, I believe. So yeah, it won't. Actually, the only time it would is if you go back to your glass tab and you say by elevation, and then hit delete, and then click on it. Then it's going to basically go through the whole elevation and delete all the glass for it. So but now that leads us to something else. So in the jobs window, so now if there's glass in the final report, let's say, final glass, and there's something that's not coming out right and you just want to be able to tweak it. Let's say you want to change, like it lets me change a description. Let's say I just put my name in here, and then I close the report. And then I get back in. See how it doesn't save that? So it would change it. I could print it out on the report, any change I make here, but it's not saving it. The reason for that is because this is a compiled report and it's pulling all the information from the job table that it created when you added your glass. So when you added your glass, it made a separate copy of all the glass from the glass table, like I mentioned. And there's a place that you can access that. So for this job, and there's only one right now, I can go up to, in the jobs window, go to current job update utilities and hit edit job glass info. Now one advantage for this is if there's ever a time that you have, let's say, a silicone joint system or a silicone glaze system where you need to tweak the sizes of the glass on the perimeter. And just because that added daylight is not working well for interior glass that's kind of got just the silicone mullions or joints at the mullions, and it doesn't have any pockets. So in that case, what we would want to do is find that elevation by sorting here. We could say it's only the second elevation. And then I could say, well, I know that all the, remember our little convention here for our labels. It's glass, the panel, and then the row. So if all of the row 1 glass, I could actually just put pound 1. So if all the row 1 glass, now this would show us door glass as well, so that might mess us up a little. The pound 1, so let me see how to do that. Yeah, so we might not be able to do it in that case unless we can think of something better. The problem with the filter bar is you can't, once you have something listed like this, like I've got all my second elevations, I can't eliminate things. I can't pick individual things out. I can pick the individual things, but I can't remove individual things. So, like if I wanted to only look at transom glass, I could do that. And this is a way you could adjust your transom glass, to be honest. If you know, whatever you're trying to do with the stops and all that isn't working, I could say, all my transom glass, I need to make the width of it, 1 inch narrower. So here I've got my, and I can update my pricing here too, but I've got my add deduct to glass width. So to deduct an inch, I would say subtract 1, minus 1. And then I'm going to update. So let's keep an eye on the width of the glass. I know these are different right here, but it's going to basically change them by an inch. So yeah, now one's 35, one's 33. So that's a real simple thing to do. And the same concept applies to, oh, I just figured out how we could do the panel glass thing. Okay, so let's say we want all our panel glass in the second elevation. So that's how we get rid of the door stuff, because the door stuff would say door here, and these are panel glasses. So, so now if I want to change all those in row 1, then I can say I want to, add an inch to the height of that glass. Then I could say a positive 1 would add, and then I'd update. So these are going to change to 83 3/4. So this is affecting the actual glass size. So let's do that. Let's look at G2 number 1 in elevation 2, and it should have that changed to 83 3/4. G2 number 1 in the second elevation. So here we are in the second elevation, and yeah, so 82 3/4. So you'll see how this is where the or I'm sorry, 83. I had to redraw the screen. I forgot what I was looking at already. So we're actually affecting the source of the information for the drawing, and then also the source of the information for the final glass report. So this final glass report is kind of generated from all the elevations in the job every time you open it. And it's pulling the information from that table we were just working on in the jobs window. So in this jobs window, again, when I go back and edit job for whatever job we're using with the little arrow on it, it's showing me all the glass in this job. Each line is one piece of glass, so it hasn't summed it yet, it hasn't totaled it yet, none of that. So I can actually individually manipulate the sizes, the price, the description, all that stuff for the different. So if I want to say second elevation here, and for this one piece of glass, It gets a little tricky when there's a type because of the way it sorts it, but let's look at this transom glass here. And, oops, I'll just call it Scott. So I changed the description of that transom glass in the second elevation, and I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to redraw. Oh, and then I can go to my elevation glass report, go to the second elevation, hit OK. And there it is. So see how I've basically affected the source of the information. So there's the description, the new description for the glass. So I guess the big point is you can change anything after you've already applied the glass to an elevation. You can change it without having to change your elevation. And that's basically a tool for you to dial in glass that isn't getting figured out correctly with the elevation, whether it's some strange condition or it's something about the way the drawing is, it can't get exact. So as long as you know that your added daylight values that I showed you here under framing systems, that dictates your most basic sizing for the glass, because the drawing gives you daylight opening and then that gives you glass size. So you know how to do that for your transom, for your panel glasses, for your door glass, and now it's another way to edit and manipulate your glass. And actually, there is a separate vertical add and horizontal add for the door glass. Now that I mention that, so you can manipulate your door glass sizes with these add daylights here. That's separate from the framing system, just like the doors are separate from the framing system. So that, I think, covers it all. We went a little bit long, but hopefully I've clarified some things or showed you some things you didn't know. And thanks again for joining us today. Go ahead and type in some questions if you need to. I think I have one here.